Once again, this is Thursday evening, and I'm here to share with you tonight 13 powerful presentation and public speaking skills. And I am so excited to have the opportunity to share these tips with you. So I want to say welcome to each and every one, whether you're watching this program live or whether or not you're watching it as a recorded webinar. So I want to again say welcome to everyone. We will get started within the next 2 minutes and make sure that we don't waste your time. We only have 90 minutes and I want to share 13 tips with you in that 90 minutes. So if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to put to me throughout this webinar, please don't hesitate to put it to your right in the chat room. If you also do that, then you can actually text me. My mobile number is just above my head. So if you have any questions for me, just text it to me. And my phone is right beside me, so I'm able to take any text messages that you send me. So we will get started very, very shortly. Just want to make sure that everyone who joins us is comfortable. Make sure that you have the right sound and picture quality. And if there's any challenges that you have, you can also refresh your page and it will work for you, I hope. So we get started in just a moment. Another 1 minute before we get started. We've got so much to share with you tonight. 13 powerful tips in relations to presentation or public speaking. So we will get started in the next minute or so. Now, I strongly recommend, really do strongly recommend that you make notes. And if you don't make notes, you can always come back and watch the recording and it will be replayed and we will send it to you approximately an hour and a half after this webinar has finished around 11:30. So again, welcome and thank you so much for joining this webinar. I'm Errol Williams and I'll introduce myself in just a moment. Welcome again, everyone. Thank you so much. Now, there are quite a few people coming in from the Google Plus end, and you may not be able to see the chat room that others are able to see, but you can text me, okay? If you have any questions or any comments that you'd like to post to me, please, please, please text those to me and my mobile number above. Now, if you're watching this from the iPhone or from a smartphone or from the iPad, you're probably only able to see the video, so you probably won't be able to communicate via the chat room, but you can if you maybe find a way to text me and I'll be more than happy to address any questions. Now, I will take questions all the way through, okay? So I will, the way I normally do it, I'll talk about a point, then I come and check to see if there are any comments, and then I go back and forth in that particular way. So let's get started, shall we? Okay, welcome again, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate you being here. And I will introduce myself to you briefly as we get going. My name is Errol Williams. I'm a pastor, regional overseer. I also teach systematic theology. I teach right here, actually, in the studio every Monday from 7:30 to 9:30 every Monday. But the first Monday of every month, I start in reference to the time would be 9:30. So let me just check the sound. If you could type and let me know if you can hear me loud and clear, that would be perfect. Now, I do have a system here that enables me to check the sound quality, and I think my sound is perfect and the picture is also perfect. So I hope it's okay for you as well. So if you want to type and let me know who you are, where you're from, and if you are hearing me correctly, then that's fine. Yeah, that'd be great. So text me. Let me just check the chat room. Okay, I know there's a lot of people online at the moment. A few people online, both section, but no one has communicated with me yet. So I'm assuming everything is okay. So I will proceed ahead. I'm a management trainer. I have around 30 years experience in training people in different parts of the world, in fact. And also motivational speaker, internet expert, been on the internet now for over 30 years and have a lot of experience that I picked up through through those years. I'm also a soft skill software trainer. I train people in software skills, various different applications. Author of 4 books. You can see those 4 books there. My next book is definitely coming out next year. And book number 5, which is called Building a Dream. Building a Dream. And it's a great book, I believe. And I see myself as a life coach. That's how I see myself. So again, welcome to everyone, and thank you for coming. Okay, the objective for tonight basically is based around presentation and public speaking skills. 13 tips to help you improve your presentation and public speaking skills. Okay, so again, if you have any questions or any comments for me, please don't hesitate to let me know, and I'll be delighted to share it. Now, I've broken my policy. I normally agree only to share 6 particular tips. I wanted to share 7 next week, 6 this week, but I realized next week I will be in our church service, so I wouldn't be able to do a webinar. So I'm doing it all tonight, 13 tips. So I'll do the whole thing. Probably in the new year, I may do this same presentation again, the same webinar again. So it might be a repeat in January. For Thursday in January, maybe a repeat. I'm not sure yet. I'll decide throughout the Christmas. So that would be a decision for me to take. Okay. Welcome, Sister Fran. Sister Fran can hear me. Great to have you. Thank you so much for coming on board. Appreciate having you on the webinar. Okay. All right, let me therefore then go forward. Just ask you a question, really. What is presentation? Now, it's interesting. Basically, the 13 points that I'm sharing with you is something that I have, let's say, had the opportunity of sharing with other companies in different parts of the world, places like Dubai, South Africa, different parts of Europe. I've done this particular program for a company called Cisco, which is one of the largest, companies in the world. And I had to travel all over the place to deliver this 2-day training. It was an advanced presentation skills. So I will be sharing with you the exact same points that I shared with them in terms of the theoretical parts of it. There's a lot of practical aspect to the training program, which I obviously can't do here tonight, but I'll be able to share with you the theoretical part of it. Now, each one of those 13 points start with what you see on the left of the screen, which is PRESENTA, etc. TIONS presentation. So each one of those letters start with one of those points. So it's a very, very easy way to remember it. I call it, memory aid. I call it mnemonics. So it's a very, very powerful and easy way to remember. You will see as we go through. So what you want to do basically, if I were you, is to capture what each of those words are saying and try to remember it, so you don't even need any notes. Okay, I could do the presentation anywhere in the world without notes because I memorized it. A presentation then is really communicating, influencing, persuading, and selling of ideas, wants, needs, and benefits. That's basically what presentation is all about. I often ask people, how long have you been in presentation? Some people will say, I've been doing presentation now for 1 year. Some say 2 years. Some say 5 or even 10 years. And I often try to prove to them, no, you've been doing presentation all your life. Even from the moment you were born and you start communicating, from a baby, you have been communicating. I just want to use an example. I was out shopping one day with my wife and the children. One of my daughters, I think she was around 2 or 3, said to me, Daddy, can I have some McTucky? What she really meant was, can I have some McDonald's or Kentucky? A very, very young age, very young child. And I didn't want to spend any more money on McDonald's or Kentucky at the time because we had spent so much money on shopping. So I said to her, I'll get you a pack of crisps that Mommy has put into the boot of the car. And when Mommy gets home, we will just make you something to eat. She said, no, Daddy, I want McTucky. And I insisted that she have the pack of crisps. And when we get home, we would give her something to eat. And then she said to me, please, please, Daddy, and I'll share it with you. And that was all I needed to hear. And I went across the road, bought what she wanted, came back, and she ate it. Now, what was she doing? She was doing a presentation. Okay, she was communicating, she was trying to influence me, she was trying to persuade me, and she sold me a very great idea. And I bought into that particular idea. She was selling what something she wanted, which was the food, etc. So communication, really, in its nutshell, is about communicating and influencing, persuading, and selling of your ideas, one's needs, or beliefs or opinions, whatever. Okay, and you've been presenting all your life, so it's not something that is new to you or alien to you. It's something that we've all been doing all of our lives. So I think I should share that point with you. Okay, let's get going with tip number one then. Tip number one is, and it's this is such a powerful tip to me personally, because one of the things that make a presenter really, really great is what I call preparation, preparation, preparation. And I want you to notice how many times I've said it 3 times. Okay, preparation, preparation, preparation. The more prepared you are, the better your presentation will be. Now, preparation may not necessarily eliminate fear and nervousness, but it certainly eliminates it after a while. There's no doubt about that. And oftentimes people, they don't have their facts, they don't have any notes, they haven't done enough research, they haven't looked into their subject enough, and you could never prepare enough, to tell you the honest truth. So the more prepared you are, the better it is. Now, every time I go to do a presentation, whether the presentation is going to last for half an hour or 1 hour or even a day, I always make sure I carry at least 4 times the information that is required. That means I'm really prepared. You never know what questions people may ask. You never know what you may have to do. You may have to extend that particular time. Classic example, I went to do a presentation one day thinking I only had 1 hour to make that presentation. So I inquired of the organizer, what time do we start and finish? Now, this was on the day. Now, she said to me, well, we will start around 10 o'clock and finish at 4 o'clock. We have a coach that's come from Birmingham. There's quite a lot of people here. I was actually in the hospitality suite at the time when I was asking these questions. So I said, could you show me the program? I just wanted to see really where I was on the program. You see, I only thought I had 1 hour, but you see, I had prepared myself really well. Well, when she brought back the program, she showed me the program. And when I looked at the program, I could not believe what I saw. I was the only presenter for the whole day from 10 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock. And it was such a great thing that I had prepared myself properly. Remember, preparation, preparation, preparation. So it's very, very important, therefore, that you know your audience, you research, make sure you have your facts, you make sure you have your notes. Always important to have your notes. One of the things I always do is I always memorized the beginning of my presentation. I always memorize it. I can repeat it verbatim. And what it does basically when you do that is that it helps to get over that nervousness at the beginning. You know, I would say something like, you know, my name is Errol Williams. I want to say welcome and thank you so much for joining the program today, and go on like that. And I always memorize the introduction. It's just the way I have done it. Okay, very important trick. And one thing I would also say is always rehearse your presentation. Practice it. You know, if you're going to play a guitar, if you're going to play some musical instrument, or you're going to sing on the stage, wouldn't you practice? Absolutely. So you practice giving your presentation before you give your presentation. Let me tell you something that we have discovered is that the brain does not know the difference between reality and fiction. So every time you rehearse it in your mind or in the bathroom or wherever you rehearse it, your mind thinks you've done the real thing. So trick your mind into thinking it's already been done. All right. So tip number one is preparation, preparation, preparation. Very, very important tip. Okay. Tip number two, as we go through, I'm only going to spend around 5 minutes on each tip if possible. When you do presentation, you must know your resources that you're going to use. And there are so many different resources that you can use. You know the type of resources that are there: whiteboard and televisions and PowerPoints and lecterns and all kinds of things. One of the things I always say to people: never use too many resources. Resources should only be there to aid your presentation, to help you. Sometimes some people, when they do a presentation, they just got too many resources. Let me say this: always know your resources. Okay, if you're going to use something, make sure you understand how it works, because if something can go wrong, guess what? It certainly will go wrong. So it's very important, therefore, that you know your resources, you understand it, you study it, and you make sure you know how to operate it, or somebody who is there knows how to operate it. So one thing I always do is I always have the room laid out the way I want it. It all depends basically on the type of presentation that you're going to give. It really all depends on the type of presentation that you're going to give. So if you're going to give a presentation, say in a church, maybe a message, you can still use this principle, because you're still going to need resources that you to actually deliver your presentation. So if you're going to give a presentation to a company or to a church or to a group of friends, the processes are still the same. Okay, so know your resources, understand your resources. If you're going to do it into a particular room, make sure the room is laid out the way you want it. And this is really important. And as I said before, make sure you know your resources, understand your resources, practice them, because as I said before, if something can go wrong, the chances are it will go wrong. And if it does go wrong, which is really not necessarily a problem, if you like, because we're dealing with technology, and technology oftentimes works and sometimes it doesn't work. But if the people that you're presenting to, sees that you know what you're doing, they will foresee that and not worry about that. But they will judge you basically based upon whether or not you understand what you're doing, if something goes wrong or if you don't. So it's very important that you know your resources. And I say again, it depends on the presentation that you're doing and what resources that you feel you would need to actually make that presentation effective. Okay. If you have any questions, anyone have any questions or any comment, please don't hesitate to put them into the chat box. Which way do I point? That way, to your right. Okay. So please let me have those as I go through. Okay. Tip number 3 is, I call it enemies. Okay. No matter what you try to do in life, there's always going to be some form of enemy. Let's call it that. One of the biggest enemy basically in presentation is, as you can see from the board there, is lack of preparation. Okay. Nervousness and fear. These are what I call enemies. Okay. Poor communication, difficult people. And you will always come across difficult people in presentation. Now, I've been doing presentation now for over 30 years in terms of companies. I mean, I've been doing presentation all my life. I'm 56. So I've been doing presentation for around 56 years. But in terms of companies, going into companies, around 30 years. And you're always going to get difficult people. You're always going to get people who don't toe the line, don't do what you want them to do, etc., etc. You're always going to get that. Are you prepared for that? Does that make sense? You've got to be prepared for every eventuality. All right. I would say, however, though, in my 30 years, I have not come across many difficult people. In my 30 years. Now, I've dealt with thousands and thousands of managers, supervisors, chief executives, and all kinds of people. And I've never come across them personally. I'm not so sure why I haven't, but maybe I have, and I just haven't regarded them as being difficult. But I think your worst enemy, personally, in my view, is the presenter. You could be your worst enemy by not being prepared, by not being on time, by not respecting the people that you're presenting to. Are you with me? You could be your worst enemy. You could be your worst nightmare. And so basically, one of the things I often say to people when you're doing presentation is that you've got to make sure that you're your best friend and not your worst nightmare or your worst enemy. Because oftentimes I've seen lots of presentation, and it's the presenter really that's causing a lot of the, let's call them problems in this case. So you've got to know what could go wrong and prepare for that. Does that make sense? You've got to know what could go wrong and prepare for that. And there will always be those enemies that exist, and they're there to try and destroy your presentation. As I say, lack of preparation, lack of knowledge, lack of skill, lack of the right attitude. All right. And so you could be your worst enemy. So again, be aware of that and combat that. Point number 4 then. Tip number 4 is a powerful tip. And I call this structure and delivery. And this is a very, very powerful point. And I've given you 3 specific structure there to consider. As you deliver, people love to know where they're at during the presentation. So it needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that's really, if you like, one of the most powerful points I can share in this particular part of the presentation. I often say to people, use a 10-80-10. In other words, spend around 10% of the time on the introduction, 80% of the time on the middle, and then 10% on the end. Okay, the introduction, which is the beginning, then the middle, which is the main part of your presentation, and the ending, which is the close. And it's very, very important, therefore, that you have a good opening, good start, good beginning, and a good end, a good close. I've heard basically that most pilots say the hardest part of flying a plane, is the takeoff, the beginning, and the landing, the end. And that's where I see a lot of presenters make a lot of mistakes. They don't have a good start and they don't have a good ending. Okay, so it's very, very important that whenever you're doing a presentation, you think of the middle, the beginning, the middle, and the end. I was taught around 30 years ago about AIDA, and where you get the people's attention, because oftentimes when you're going to present to people, they are busy on their phone, on their computer, whatever. So you need to arrest their attention. You need to let them know why they should be interested, and maybe by telling what the objective is. As you make the presentation, you get their desire, and then it leads to action. And this is a very, very powerful technique, by the way. Well known in the presentation world, AIDA, attention, interest, desire, and action. Many, many years ago, I came across a gentleman by the name of John Cleese. He used to be the star in 40 Towers, which was a comedy program that came on TV many years. Very, very funny guy. Eventually, he gave up 40 Towers and set up a company called Video Arts, where he produced training videos and sold to companies. And so a training video, for example, around 27-minute training video, could be around £1,200. Professional actors and so on. Well, in one of his videos, known as Presentation, John Cleese spoke about the 4 Ps, and I think that's so powerful. I think it's one of the most powerful presentation structure that I've ever come across, that most companies are using 4 Ps, and it's position, problem, possibilities, and proposal. So let's take, for example, let's say the position. Okay, position is that I'm on the motorway, I'm on the M1. Problem, I've broken down. Possibilities, well, I could call the RAC. I could push the car to the side, maybe call a friend to come and get me, or etc., etc. Proposal, well, I'm going to call it RAC, and so on. And you can see really how very simple the technique is. Position, this is where we are at. Problem, what the problem is. Possibilities, different ways that we could get out of the issue. And then the proposal, the way that we have chosen to get out. So I think these 3 structural ideas are very, very powerful. So when you think of structure and delivery, think of the beginning, the middle, the end. Also think of AIDA. Make sure you get their attention. Make sure you let them know why they should be there, the interest, and build their desire. And then obviously you make sure that there is action. And then never forget the 4 Ps. I think this is so powerful. Position, problem, possibilities, and proposal. Powerful point. And you don't ever want to forget those points. Okay, let me just slow down there for a moment, just to check if there are any questions or any comment from anyone. Please let me know if you have any comments or any question. Those of you from Google Plus end, I'm just checking my phone just to see if you've sent me any text. If not, then I will continue. I've seen no text, so let me continue then. So we've looked at PRES, preparation. We looked at making sure that you know what your resources are, and what you don't want to do with resources is use too many resources. The resources should be to aid your presentation, not to replace it, okay? We looked at enemies, and there is always enemies to presentation, always, okay? Structure and delivery is indeed as you see on this screen. Okay, let's move on to the next point, and I call it evaluation. And I often say to people, when should you do an evaluation of your presentation? And people always say at the end, and I always say that's good, but you should always do a presentation at the beginning, during your presentation, and after it. You should always be evaluating. You and me, even right now, I should be evaluating, is this presentation really working? Is it really getting to the people that I am actually communicating with, etc., etc. One thing I always say to people who do presentation is that they should love feedback, love to receive the comments of those that they had the opportunity to present to. Love feedback. Sometimes people only want to hear the good things. They don't want the developmental things. But how are you going to develop if you don't get all the feedback? If we only get feedback of how great we were, even if we weren't great, people telling us how great we were, how wonderful it was, how clear it was, how powerful it was, but they don't tell you the things which really you ought to improve on. And the reason why they don't, because they don't know how you're going to take the information, whether you're going to get hurt and upset and treat them differently. So sometimes people are afraid to give feedback. They're afraid to do so. Why? Again, because people respond and react differently to situations. So love feedback, okay? Get into the habit telling yourself, I love feedback. I, Errol Williams, I love feedback. I want the feedback. I need the feedback, because how will I grow and get better if I don't improve on those things that I need to develop on? So love feedback. And when you evaluate, you want to ask yourself some questions like, have I achieved my objective? Have I achieved it? At the beginning, when you evaluate, you might say, well, what is my objective? During, you might ask the question, am I achieving the objective? At the end, you may want to ask, have I achieved the objective? You might also want to review also your plan, okay? And all of the preparation that you did, you know, were they appropriate? Were they really what I ought to have done? You know, what was my strength? You see, one of the things, as I said before, people, they love to know about their strength, but not realizing it's the weaknesses they need to hear about, because that's the development area. That's the area I need to get to work on. So if someone says to me, Errol, you are very weak in your PowerPoint presentation. Your PowerPoint presentations is your weak point. I said, oh, thank you. So now I need to go and brush up on my PowerPoint presentation, because if my PowerPoint presentation is the weak area, then there you are. Person might say, Errol, didn't like the way you dress. And they may explain how you dress and say, oh, I never thought of that. Thank you. I'll give you an example. For example, if you're doing a presentation and you want people to look at your face, generally put something red near your face, because people are attracted to red. And if people, you know, went into a room and there was something red there, their eye generally gravitate towards that red thing, obviously if it's in a prominent position. So if you don't want no one to look at your waistline, well, don't put nothing red there. You'll follow me. These are techniques that we have told people and have trained people when we teach them on a particular subject called impact, you know, impact that they could make on other people. So it's very, very important, therefore, that you get feedback. I really want to stress this, because a lot of people miss this. Okay, feedback is great. Feedback helps you to improve. Feedback, I'm talking about, on your weakness, because we all love feedback about, man, this was great, that was fantastic. I also want to hear what wasn't so fantastic, what weren't you happy with? Because if you're presenting to 10 people, the chances are 2 of them weren't happy, generally. And that's why normally in a training course, we will give people an evaluation form, and they will fill out the form and tell us what they think. And it's very rare you're going to get 100%. Well, I have had 100% mark on training courses before. I've had that, but it's not always the case. Normally it's 95, 90. So I want to know why didn't I get that extra 5%? Why didn't I get that extra 10%? That's what I want to know. Was it to do with me, the presenter? Was it to do with the handouts? Was it to do with the training room? And if it's a training room, then I may have to make some recommendation and suggestion how we can fix that. Does that make sense? So you need feedback. Ask your friends. As a matter of fact, ask your children, ask your spouse, ask your friends what they think about you. And listen to this carefully. Don't give them any form of impression that would cause them to stop talking to you. All right. That's a very useful point, I believe. Okay. So when you evaluate, ask yourself these questions. And I say again, I want to emphasize again on the development areas, or what we call the weakness areas, is that's really what you want feedback on. You want to know how well you're not doing, or how well you're doing, and also how well you're not doing. Okay, very, very important. Okay, I love it when people tell me what they think, and it's areas that I could develop on, because it gives me an opportunity to find out and get to work. One time somebody says, "Errol, you're not smiling enough." So, wow, I didn't realize that. I need to work on that one. Oh, I wonder how I'm going to do that, And so I've learned some techniques about how to make sure I'm always smiling as far as possible. Now, you can't smile in every situation, depending on the situation, obviously. You got to know when to smile, when not to smile. I mean, if someone is telling you that, their grandmother died last night, you're not going to want to smile at that particular point. You might want to show a different facial expression and so on. So you got to know when to do that, when not to do it. Okay, excellent. Let me just see if there's any comments for me, and then I will come back. Greetings, Brother Leroy. Great to have you, sir. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And to all those from Google Plus, welcome and thank you for joining us on the webinar. I am on the next point. Now I'm going to move on from evaluation. Now I'm going to move on to nonverbal communication. This is so crucial. You get this point. Okay. Research has been done. Whenever you communicate, whenever you are presenting, whether you're presenting in a boardroom, or whether you're presenting with your wife or your spouse or your children, whether you're presenting in a church, a group of friends, or in the pub, really makes no difference. Same thing. Okay. I want you to notice that the information, your communication to them, what they understand from what you are communicating, is sent to them in 3 channels. And they're all here: body language, tone of voice, and the words. This is an absolute fact and a powerful point. When you communicate to somebody, when you understand what somebody else is saying, you are understanding what they're communicating through their body language, tone of voice, and the words they speak. Research shows that 55% of the information that you pick up, or what you understand from what the other person is communicating, is given to you through the body language. 38% is through the way they said what they said, or tone of voice. And only 7% of what you understood was from their words. So now, as I communicate with you, you're picking up my body language, my facial expression, the movement of my hands, the way I sit, my posture, my gesture, and so on. You're also listening to the way I say what I say, which is my tone of voice, and you're also listening to the words. But what the research came back and showed was that 93% of what you understood was done subconsciously. In other words, it's done unawares. So in other words, as you communicate with another person, you're probably not aware what your body language is saying, and you're probably not fully aware what your tone of voice is saying. You probably are aware what you're saying with your words. That's why sometimes there's so much misunderstanding. I think this is such a crucial piece of information, crucial piece of research that was done, that you don't ever want to miss this ever again. That as you communicate to people, body language sends 55% of that information, just like what's happening right now. 38% is through your tone. So if I'm speaking to my spouse and I'm presenting to her, she's picking up information based upon my body language. In other words, my mouth, my appearance, my gesture, my posture, the entire movement of my body, my eyes. Are you following me? And all of those combination goes into giving a message. And my tone of voice that goes with it. 93% of what I communicated to her is done subconsciously. And I may not even know I'm doing it. So it's very, very important, therefore, when you're presenting, be aware of this powerful information, that your body language plays a very powerful part of your presentation, and also your tone of voice. 93% of what your audience is about to understand will come through your body language, through your tone of voice, and only 7%, research shows, will be by word. You see, we are very visual, and we're very, kinesthetic. We can hear, auditory. We can hear and we see. We hear and we see. The two very powerful senses when it comes to presentation. So be aware of this information and use it to your advantage. So when I do presentations to companies or whoever I do it to, I make sure that my body language speaks clearly the message I want it to speak. I make sure my tone of voice, I can hear it as I'm saying it, is the way I want it to be. And the words I speak are also very, very important and checked. I hope that makes sense. I really hope that makes sense to you. Okay. Okay, right. Let's move on then. Next tip. I like this one. This is what I call tract. It's how do you deal with questions and answers? And you see, question and answers enable your audience to have great interaction and participation. In fact, this livelies up the room. It livelies up the actual whole presentation. In fact, it does take up a lot more time, however, but it's a powerful, powerful technique. So I always say to the people, when someone asks you a question, this is what you could do. You don't have to do all of them, but it might be useful to do some of them, if not all of them. So someone asked me a question and I would say something like, thank you for the question. And I might rephrase the question if I choose to. I might say, so what you're saying is X. Then I answer the question, give them the answer. Once I finish the answer, I said, did you understand what I've said? Is that okay? And they might say, yes. So what I'm doing there is I am confirming, I'm checking. And then finally I said, well, again, thank you for the question. Now, I don't have to do all of those. It's entirely up to you if you choose to do all of them, during the question. It's entirely up to you. So I repeat again, someone asks a question and I says, I might not even say that, thank you for the question. I might use another phrase. I might say, well, great question. That's a fantastic question. So what you're saying is, or if I understand you correctly, you're asking, and sometimes I don't do that. I just answer it and then I check. Are you following me? I answer it and then I check to make sure, because sometimes when I check, it's proof that I understood the question. If I don't understand the question because of the fact when I check, they will then have an opportunity to come back at me and say, no, I didn't understand that. This is what I meant. And so it's always useful to appreciate people for asking questions, just by saying thank you. Thank you is one of the most powerful words in the world. Thank you. So you could thank the person for asking the question. Then you can rephrase it, repeat it back in your own language as to what you felt they were asking. Then you answer the question. Then you check. Then you thank. Okay. And as I say again, you don't have to use all of these particular points, but you can if you want to, or just pick and choose what you want to do. So generally speaking, normally someone asked me a question and I said, thank you for the question. And then I would answer it. Okay, so I haven't done a rephrase, so I'll answer it. But what I would make sure is I would check, is that okay? And the person might say, yes, it was, or no, it wasn't. And then they come back at me and we go from there. And then I said, thank you for the question. Any more questions? And we go from that. So it's a really nice way of showing appreciation to people for their participation. Because when people ask questions, they're actually helping you, in fact. They're giving you time to take a break. They're giving you time to think. They're waking up other people that may have been falling off, and so on. So it is a great tool, I believe, to get people on your side. Okay, another powerful tip, and it's about being assertive when you present. Assertiveness is one of the most powerful technique in presentation, because I've watched a lot of presentation today. In fact, I was on YouTube. I spent many hours today just listening to a lot of people give presentation, and all these people who were giving presentations today, they were professionals. They've been doing it for years. And it's amazing when you watch someone who has been doing presentation for years, how calm they are, how professional they are, and how assertive they are. They're just so positive, and you look at them and you watch them and you think, wow, it's like they're dancing on the stage. It's like they're just doing ballet on the stage, the way they move and the way they do their things, the way they walk across the stage, the way they present themselves and so on. Just awesome. I must have watched at least 10 today. And I didn't do that in reference to this presentation. That was not the reason why I was watching it. It was because of another presentation that I'm putting together. So I was listening to them for some information that I needed for another particular thing I'm doing. But they were also assertive. I didn't find one of them that was passive, because I want you to note the 4 states when people give presentations. There are really only 4 I know. One of them is the passive presenter who very shy, very sort of nervous, very fearful, very unsure of themselves, and so on, very passive. And you'll often hear them saying, you're better than me type of thing. I'm not okay, but you're okay. And that's one style of presentation, the passive one. Then you have the aggressive presenter, the ones who comes up and they show off their knowledge and they boast and they're good at presentation, but they're very aggressive in the way they approach things and so on. And then you have another type of person who really is what I call the indirect aggression. Really, they are not so directly aggressive, but they are indirectly aggressive, and they're still aggressive, but they do it in such a way that you're not even aware that they're doing it sometimes. But the other person that I really love is the assertive person. And the question is, what is assertiveness? An assertive person, as you can see, is one, and I've underlined these words, I think is very, very important. Someone who states their needs, wants, feelings, opinions, or beliefs, and you stop there, okay? Someone who is stating their needs, their wants, their opinion, their beliefs, etc. And notice how they do it. Clear, direct, specific, honest, and loving. Clear, direct, specific, honest, and loving. Very important. Okay, now, when we think of someone that's assertive, we're thinking about someone who, and I'm trying to show you the difference between the assertive person and the person who is indirectly aggressive. The assertive person cares about you as much as they do about themselves. The indirect person, they really don't care about you. In fact, they care more about themselves, and they would only treat you in such a way as they get what they want. But the assertive person cares for you. They cares for you as much as they care for themselves. That's why it says honest and love it. You will never know an honest person based upon how they present or how they dress. You normally would know them based upon their motives. Okay, the way you will know a tree is by its fruits, and that's how you will know who is assertive and who is not assertive. It's really based upon their fruits. Okay, and it's sometimes you can't really detect it straight away. It takes some time. So the assertive person is one who states their wants, their needs, their beliefs, or their opinions in a very clear, direct, honest, loving, specific, and honest way. Okay, so they care about you and they care about themselves, and that's very, very important when we talk about assertive person. It's not based upon, you know, the way they talk. Because have you ever heard the phrase "wolf in sheep's clothing"? Okay, wolf in sheep's clothing. That's a dangerous statement. They're a wolf, but they come dressed. In other words, they're indirectly aggressive, but they come dressed as an assertive person. They present a picture that they're really not, and it's hard to detect them because you won't know them until they bear fruit. So, be honest with yourself and with others when you are presented. Be confident, positive, and understanding. Do to others as you would have them do to you. I think that's a very good policy, in fact, is to do to other people exactly what you'd like them to do to you. Let me say this, okay? It's virtually nearly impossible to present to people who don't like you. Very difficult. I used to work with a trainer who used to train me to become a training specialist. And this particular gentleman, his job, he was specifically employed to train me to become a training specialist. And one day he fell out with our security supervisor. Now, a security supervisor was a big department because we had to secure the building 24/7. So this gentleman had quite a large workforce. He was a supervisor of quite a lot of people. And when he and the supervisor had an argument, he was a trainer. What we discovered was that he could not communicate properly or train that department very effectively. So every time he sent a memo or try to communicate with the department, he would use my name. That's why Solomon says a good name is better than riches. So when you train people, you definitely don't want to get in their bad books. Or when you present to people, you definitely don't want to be, because people just, there's a saying that says people buy from people they like and trust. Okay. And that is so true. When you're communicating to people, and if they trust you and like you, they listen to you. Okay. If they don't trust you and they don't like you, they just won't even show up. This is the way it works. So in presenting, and remember what I'm saying here, when you're presenting, we're not just talking about presenting in a company or presenting in a church. You're always presenting. Remember I said before, presentation is about communicating, influencing, persuading, and selling of ideas, wants, needs, and benefits. So every time you're communicating or you're persuading or you're influencing or you're trying to sell something, you are presenting. Right now I'm presenting, even though I'm doing so and through this webinar. So it's all intricately entwined with your entire life. So you're always presenting. That's just the way it works. So it's very important to treat people the way you want them to treat you. And when you do so, you get a lot more respect out of folks, a lot more respect. Okay. Okay. I will move on to my next point. We only got 5 left. This is what is techniques when you're presenting. Wow. Very, very important to use certain techniques. Now, I would have to say that probably the greatest technique that I know when you're presenting to other people is to tell stories. In fact, the greatest teacher that I ever heard about that walked this planet was a brother called Jesus Christ. And he spoke only by parables, which was stories that his disciples were able to remember even 30, 40 years later. It's amazing. If I were to ask you right now, tell me about your past, and you start to tell me with confidence, what are you telling me? You're telling me a story. You're giving me a picture of what happened to you, what you went through, what you lived, and so on. So it's very important, therefore, to adapt certain techniques, depending on the presentation that you're doing, obviously, because this is what kills me in a church. For example, a preacher gets up to preach in a church, and the preacher preached for 1 hour. Listen, hardly anybody is going to remember what was said. Let me say this again. A preacher gets up and he preaches in a church for 1 hour. In around a few days or even a few weeks, you probably don't even remember what he or she said. And this is one of the major downfall of a lot of presenters today. They don't use techniques. Now, Jesus, when he taught his disciples or when he taught those around him, he spoke in stories. You know, a certain man went down to Jericho and fell among thieves. Or he would say that a certain man had 2 servants, and he would talk about this and he would compare that over there with that. And so what he was doing was an amazing way of communicating. Today, as I said, many presenters get up and they talk. And when you finish, if you took no notes of what they were saying, you're not going to remember. So someone once said the strongest memory is like the weakest ink. It just fades away in time. And generally speaking, when I speak normally in a church, I try to speak less than an hour. I really try to do that. And I like to use a lot of almost like, call it role play or something that the people could remember that it would be hard for them to forget. And that's how Jesus taught. He taught in terms of parables, pictures. So this is a very, very powerful way of doing it, okay? And there are lots of other techniques. Again, as I say, it depends on the presentation that you're doing. Like role plays, you know, if I'm doing in a company's, you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be doing some role plays, because that has a phenomenal way of getting, you know, presentation, delegate participation, and powerful for getting information, and a powerful tool to learn from as well. Pictures, charts, graphs, eye contact. Also, one technique I always say to people is when you're doing a presentation, you know, communicating with people, don't use big words and long sentences, because big words, if you use them on people who don't understand them, you've lost them. You have not communicated. You know, you follow me? I don't have much time to go into that, but if you're going to communicate in such a way that people can't understand you, then you're just going to lose your audience. They're not going to be interested at all, because you're trying to impress them, and trust me, they're not impressed. So always speak to the people in the language that they know. If they understand the big words, then use the big words. You know, if they understand it, obviously, if you know that they understand it, then speak it. Or if you do speak it, explain whatever jargon you may use. And a lot of companies, in fact, just live in jargon. You know, for example, someone was giving a presentation once, and he says the BMC I'd approached him and so on. I'm saying, BMC? What on earth is BMC? I have no idea what BMC is. And this is oftentimes how a lot of people communicate. And they just leave their audience bewildered. BMC, what on earth is that? I have no idea until you tell me. Nothing wrong with using the jargon, but at least explain it, what it means. BMC means XYZ. So always use techniques when you're presenting. You know, one lady did a presentation many years ago, and I remember her name. And I've listened to hundreds of different presentations since her presentation and now. And I can't get her one out of my mind. And I don't think I'll be able to get it out of my mind for the rest of my life. She did something that ingrained in my head, and I just can't get it out. And even if I try to, I can't get it out. What she did was this. Her name is Sandra Graham. So if she's watching right now, you know, she'll know I'm talking about her. She came up to do a presentation. I probably was around 15, 20-minute presentation, powerful stuff. And she brought a big, juicy red apple. And I thought, wow, what a juicy, beautiful apple. I've not seen an apple that big for ever. And she talked and she talked. And then she was talking, relating the apple actually to a person's heart. That was the basis of our presentation. Now we're talking about 25 years ago, maybe a quarter of a century ago. And she took a knife. She had a knife with her in her presentation. And she cut the apple right down the middle and opened it. I could not believe how rotten the apple was on the inside. The apple was the most deliciously looking, gorgeous red apple I'd seen in a lot. She must have polished it. I kid you not, she must have polished it. It was so beautiful. And when she cut it open, inside the apple was so rotten. And what she was demonstrating was, many of us, we look beautiful on the outside as individuals. But on the inside of our hearts, we're full of envy and bitterness, unforgiveness, and all kind of stuff. And she did that demonstration, and that demonstration has never left me in those 25 years. And yet, I have heard so many presentations since then. I can't hardly remember them. What a powerful technique she used, huh? She used a picture. And that's exactly what Jesus was doing. He told stories and he gave pictures. You know, I remember when he said, not even Solomon in all of his glory was arrayed as these beautiful flowers. And I'm sure he must have pointed to them and showed the disciples. Oh, there's a time when he says, you know, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. I'm sure he had pointed to something, because many people believe the eye of a needle was a particular doorway, okay, and it was quite low, and he was showing that, you know, for the camel to get through it was not impossible, what was difficult. But when we think of eye of a needle, we are thinking of the needle that we use here. I mean, that's not what Jesus meant. Couldn't have been. So he would have used a lot of pictures. So as the disciples are going about their business and their duties and so on, it was impossible for them to forget, because if I can't get this presentation that was done 25 years ago out of my head, hey, that says something, isn't it? When somebody gets up and speak for 1 hour, they gave me no PowerPoint presentation. They gave just talk, and sounds great at the time, but when I need it 5 days later, a week or so later, can't seem to remember. And so, got to use techniques. If you want people to remember, you're going to have to use some techniques that would aid them and help them to actually remember what it is that you're speaking to them about. Okay, let me move on to 4 more tips and then we will let you go. And I love this one, interpersonal and personal skills. The word inter means between, skills that you need and between. And there are much, much more. Just chose a few here. When you're presenting, you're going to have to use interpersonal or personal skills to get your message across. For example, I mentioned one before about assertiveness. That's an interpersonal skill. Or listening and communicating, or negotiating, or persuading, or influencing. Are you with me? These are what we call also interpersonal or personal skills. So you're going to need some of these skills in order to be able to get your message across to people. Again, I want to emphasize, when we talk about presentation, we're not just talking about presenting in a boardroom, in a company, but even in a one-on-one with a friend, or in a church, or in your group, your small group, or in the community somewhere. Even in a brief encounter with somebody on the street, you're presenting. So it's something that's entwined with our entire life. We've been doing it since birth, if you like. So when you are, in presenting to others, you got to be aware of those skills. And the better you are at these life skills, or the better you are at these interpersonal or personal skills, or soft skills, the better you will be able to present. Far easier. Okay. How excellent are you at communicating? How excellent are you at listening? How excellent are you in negotiating, or persuading, or influencing? But finally, on this particular point, you will see ASK. Every job on the planet are based around attitude, skills, and knowledge. Every presentation are based around attitude, skills, and knowledge. Your attitude towards yourself and your attitude towards other people. Very, very important. Your skill. You'll never be able to play the flute without playing the flute. You can't do presentation without giving presentation. Does that make sense? You don't get any better unless you do them. All right? The more you do them, it's just the better you get. So that's very, very important. Your skill is your ability, your competence to do the thing. Your knowledge is about, the knowledge of what you're talking about, the knowledge of what you're presenting. Do you have the knowledge? Are you with me? And nowadays, the knowledge is available. You don't have to even pay for some of these knowledge now. You can get it if you have the time to search the internet for it, because a lot of us are making that information available for free. Could you imagine, for example, somebody is searching the internet and they're looking for something that would help them to do a presentation skills seminar. So a company may have called them, or a group of people may have called them and said, look, we need some help with our presentation. We've got a lot of people here who are doing presentation. Could you put together a presentation skills course for us? So they searched the internet and came across this video that I'm presenting now. Don't you think that person will be very happy? Don't you think that they will be so excited to get a copy of my PowerPoint slide that I'm presenting now? All they have to do is download it onto their PC, do a little bit of tweak here and there, and voila. I'll give you an example of that. I was asked by an organization to do a presentation on the political system of this country. I had no idea about this, the political situation in the country. I had no idea, but this particular group wanted me to do some training. There's a group that put together of Caribbean and Asian group, and I would go up there on a Saturday. So what I did was I thought, of course I could do a course like that. I have no knowledge, but I'm sure there are people around me who can help me. So I immediately didn't do anything about it, because I thought, piece of cake. So nearing the time, or maybe around a month before the time, I called a few of my friends who work for the local authorities and so on and so forth. I said, look, I need this particular information. Could you help me out? And they said, yeah, we will look into it and get back to you. Well, a week before, I chased them up and realized they had no information. I said, what do you mean you have no information? You're the local authority. You must have information about the political system of this country, how it works, how it operates, how it functions, the House of Lords, and all of this stuff. Surely you must have something I could use. I've only got 7 days to go. Me, I have no idea. This is going to be an all-day course from 10 o'clock till 5. 10 to 5. What am I going to tell people at 10 to 5 about the political system of this country? And I have no idea about that. Well, I'm stuck. I sat by my desk and I'm completely stuck. Now, I have two choices. One of them was to phone the person who had engaged me to say, look, I can't do it. Just can't do it. But that was not an option. I have to do it. And I sat back and I wondered to myself, but how am I going to do it? Can't make something up that I don't know. Then all of a sudden, something hit me in my head, the internet. So I went on the internet and I started to search and search and search and search. And then eventually I came across a PowerPoint presentation of exactly what I wanted. I downloaded it, tweaked it a little bit, went to the company, delivered it, and they thought I was the best thing since sliced bread. Can you believe that? The information is there on the internet. The amazing thing about the internet is that we are all helping each other. A lot of the information is free. Some of it you have to pay for, but a lot of it out there is free. And you'd be amazed, actually, if you just go to YouTube and just type in the word presentation skills, you'd be amazed the amount of information that you'll get just for free. Any subject, as a matter of fact. It's just really is amazing. So you want to make sure you develop your interpersonal skills. And the one I would suggest is the ASK. Develop your attitude, the way you treat yourself, the way you treat other people. Develop your skill. You get better by doing a thing. You get better playing the flute by playing the flute. You get better at swimming by swimming. You get better at presentation by doing presentation. It's the only way you get better. And whatever subject that you're going to present on or talk about or trying to influence or persuade people on, make sure you know it. Do your research. Preparation, preparation, preparation. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. Okay. Just 3 more points. No one is asking me any questions, so let me carry on. A presentation without an objective is really a potential for disaster. So it's very important that you have a presentation. At the beginning, I gave you my presentation, 13 tips to help you improve in your presentation or public speaking skills. That's my objective, to give you 13 tips that will improve your ability to deliver presentations and public speaking anytime you do it. So it's very important, therefore, when you do a presentation, is that you have an objective. And you state your objective very, very clearly. You clearly define your objective. Ask, what does your audience want to know? What do they want to know? And one of the best ways to ask your audience, actually, it's one of the best ways to find out what your audience wants is to ask them. As a matter of fact, the reason why I'm doing this presentation is because one of my customers asked me to do so. And I'm doing so at that request. And I probably will repeat this presentation in January, even though the replay will be there. I'll probably repeat this one. But it's very important that you find out what your audience wants or need. Sometimes we give them what we feel they need, but not give them what they want. And that's also very, very, very important. And we've done a lot of research in this area to find out how to deal with customer expectations and so on. Oftentimes we give people what we think they need and not give them what they really want. And that could be a disaster in many, many ways. Okay, so it's important to clarify the objective. And when you do your presentation, it's always useful to stick to your objective, because you can easily be veered off course. Okay, so it's very, very important that you stay in course, stay in target with that. One of the things I've discovered many years back now is that when you are presenting to get people's interest and to keep them occupied and keep them really engaged, is to present what I call the bar: benefits, advantages, and results. You know, Marks and Spencer don't sell suits, by the way. They only sell style. Are you following me? That's the way they market their stuff. They're not selling a suit, they're selling style. I used to run a bookshop, but I didn't sell books. I was selling pleasant hours of reading and learning. That's what I was selling. And so if you focus on benefits, advantages, and results, then you may find also that you get a better engaging audience. Okay. So objective, very important. The wise man Solomon says, where there is no vision or where there's no objective, people, they perish. Okay. So it's important to have an objective. It's important to stay on target with that. It's important to make sure it's stated from the audience's point of view, because the next point is the audience, and they are the most important part of your presentation. I remember asking this question, what is the most important part of your presentation? And people say the presenter. The presenter is the most important person in the presentation, or whatever. I says, wow. I said, if the audience didn't exist, there would be no presenter. The presenter is only here because of the audience. The audience is the most important. And so when you present, you got to present it from the audience's point of view. Does that make sense? That's why it's important for us to find out what the audience wants and give them what they want. And you would have a better experience. So let your audience participate in the presentation, listen to your audience and communicate effectively, be sensitive to the needs of your audience, and be empathic. In other words, put yourself in their position. And you know what's amazing, in fact, I do so much training over the years, in the last 30 years, that I have often found myself in a classroom. And it's amazing, actually, how I feel when I sit in a classroom. Sometimes if the trainer doesn't allow me to participate, I kind of shut off. It's amazing. I just found it amazing, actually. I don't want to be there. It's like I've got all this intelligence that you're not even using it, So I feel that the more I'm able to participate in the presentation, when I'm sitting in the delegate seat being trained, when they use me to say something, even if it's Q&A, I feel more engaged, I feel more participative. So whenever I deliver training now, that's the reason why I would always give people the opportunity to participate, whether it be through group work or being able to question me, etc., etc. Again, as I say, it depends on the type of presentation that you're doing. Now, I would have preferred tonight that you were asking me questions. I would have preferred if you were engaged with me, but a lot of you are not engaged, and that's one of the danger of webinars. You can't see your audience, in fact, even though there are people here at Google Plus, there's quite a few people from Google Plus, and there's a few people who came in through the webinar section. Maybe all you guys are there, but you've gone to make a cup of tea, coffee, whatever. So you and me. So it's very difficult from a webinar point of view to know what the audience is doing unless we engage the audience. And sometimes we're able to do some, especially when I have some controversial topics. You get an audience that's more participative than maybe a presentation like the one I'm doing, where people just sit back and relax and listen to what's being said. And just to let you know as well, if you do want, you can have the PowerPoint slides if you want. If you email me at the email address, if you do want it, then I could email this PowerPoint slide to you, so you can download it and use it to your own benefit if you so wish. Okay. One last area that I want to share with you, and this is really, I think is a very, very important, and then we will just do a recap on what we have done. And it's really style. And I often say to people, don't copy other people. In other words, learn from them and use some of their techniques, obviously, but don't emulate them. Don't be them. Be you. Okay? Develop your own style, your own uniqueness, because there really is only one you on the planet anywhere that we know of. So I always say to people, just be yourself, man. Be natural, be open. Okay? Don't imitate other people. Develop your own style. Be sensitive and courteous to other people. Present a warm, positive attitude and good behavior, and smile. Okay? Well, obviously, where appropriate. Very, very important. So when we talk about style, we're talking about you. We're talking about the way you present. Let me say this to you this way. Can nobody present like you present? Trust me. Nobody has your personality. Nobody has your DNA. Nobody has your experience, life experiences. Nobody can do it the way you do it. There may be people who can do a great presentation, but that's them, and they have their style. I listen a lot to Anthony Robbins and to Les Brown and to Miles Monroe and to T.D. Jakes, and I listen to all these great, wonderful guys and women. I don't want to be them. Well, when I first started out, I assassinated my own style and character and pretended to be Martin Luther King. I was just mesmerized by his ability to communicate that I forgot about me and try to be him. So I would get up to do a presentation and I would sound like this. Words are inadequate for me to express the deep thoughts that floods my mind today as a result of being here today. I mean, I really sounded like an idiot, I would say. And I then realized, you know what? Stop trying to pretend to be somebody when you can be an original. So I was a fake imitation. Now I am an original. And there's no one like Errol Williams. No one. And there's no one like you. You see, you're unique in your own identity and in your own style and personality. And oftentimes what we try to do, we try to be something that we are not. We try to pretend to be somebody else. No, be comfortable with who you are and present from your standpoint. If people don't like you, fine. There are some that do like you and would want to listen to what you have to say. So don't worry about those who are not interested. Listen, there are around 7 billion people on the planet. Not all of them is going to like you. Okay. So we just move on from there. I thought I would share this with you actually, because I think this was a very powerful point, because a lot of people are using PowerPoints today. And I've oftentimes watched people who do PowerPoint presentations, and it's a very, very effective tool today. I'm so glad that we have it. And it's a tool that is used a great deal. And when I did a lot of work with Cisco, I was amazed at the amount of what they call it slide decks that they have for everything. And some of the slide decks passed the test I'm going to give you. It's what we call the 4x6 or the 6x6 rule. What that simply means is when you do a PowerPoint slide, make sure it's only 6 lines and 6 words per line. Now, that's just a general rule. Doesn't mean you have to stick to it verbatimly. But if you follow that principle, your slides will be perfect. And most of the slides that I showed you today, all 13 of them, generally followed that rule, either 4x6 or 6x6. In a case where you have to give a definition or a sentence, it's a different matter. But where, if you notice, I tried to make the slides as easy, readable as possible, not overloaded with colors, overloaded with pictures, but as simple as possible, because simplicity is the name of the game. I don't want you to go away with remembering my presentation in terms of my PowerPoint, I want you to go remembering the points that I shared. So I hope that particular PowerPoint tip, if you do use PowerPoint, is useful to you, is the 6x6 or the 4x6. So if you have 6 lines, 6 bullet points, let's say, you try to bring the words down to around 6 words, or 4 lines and 6 words. So let me do a quick recap if there are no questions for me, and then we will let it go. I started off by giving you the objective, which is 13 tips to help you improve your presentation and public speaking skills. These are tips that I've used over the years that have been a major part of my development. I told you about what presentation is. It's about communicating, influencing, persuading, and selling ideas, want, needs, and benefits. And you've been doing so all your life. That's the reality about it. You've been presenting all your life, okay? And there's absolutely no doubt about that. Each of the letters on the left of the slide speaks of a particular point. One of the points: preparation, preparation, preparation. The more prepared you are, the more smoother will be your presentation. And it's a very important point. Presentation without resources may be a dull presentation. So it's very important, therefore, that you have resources. Make sure you understand the resources. Don't use too many resources. Only use enough to make the point that you wish to make. Okay? Very important. There's always enemies to presentation. Always enemies. Okay? I believe the biggest enemy is the presenter. Lack of research, lack of preparation, have no notes, no facts to defend or to back up their points. Okay? And it's generally not going to be difficult people, even though you will have that. But generally speaking, the more I've discovered that I'm prepared, the easier the presentation is for me. Structure and delivery. Oh, this is an awesome point, because I've given you these 3 specific ones. Use all 3 of them. You know, make sure you have a beginning, middle, and end. Make sure you arrest their attention, let them know why they need to be there, get their interest. As you do your presentation, you create their desire, and you move them to a close or to get them to do an action. The 4 P's is powerful: position, problem, possibilities, and proposal. I love it. Thank you, John Cleese, for that. Wow, you just made my life so much more simpler when you shared those 4 P's. Evaluation. When should you evaluate? Before the presentation, during the presentation, and after the presentation. Are you with me? Keep asking yourself questions. What's the objective? Okay, am I achieving the objective? Have I achieved the objective? You know, the end. So you want to go from before, during the presentation, after it. So you're evaluating all the time. And the idea of evaluating is so that you pick up clues and get better and better and better. Very important point. Remember, again, 93% of the information that you're communicating is done subconsciously and done through your body language, okay? Through your body language and your tone of voice. Only 7% of it is through the words. So that's a very powerful point, I believe. You're always going to have questions, okay? People are going to ask you questions. Just appreciate them. Never ever look at any question as being stupid, foolish. And I've seen a lot of people, they get annoyed because the same person keep asking question. Well, listen, if you've opened the floor for people to ask questions and one person is asking lots of questions, that's what you open the floor for. So take the person's questions. Or set the rules if you like, if you want to do that. I've never had to set any rule, but I don't find that a nuisance at all. Sometimes that same person is helping other people understand points that they're afraid to maybe ask. So, you don't have to use all these points, but you want to thank the person for asking the question, rephrase the question if you feel you need to, answer it and check. Make sure you answer it and check. Make sure you thank them Okay, those are the three of the ones I would always use is to thank, answer, and check. Okay, I would always use that. I would rephrase it if I feel I need to, and so on. Okay, very, very important. Be assertive. Okay, be positive. Don't be passive. Don't be aggressive. Don't be indirect aggressive. Pretending to be assertive and all kind of stuff. But be assertive. Be positive. And there are various techniques that we can use how to be positive and how to be assertive all the time. And again, that comes with a lot of experience and doing presentations. Techniques, a lot of techniques out there. I tell you, wow, love the storytelling and the pictures. I just love the storytelling of Jesus, his parables. Man, in fact, if you read all of his parables, you probably don't even need to read the Bible again about those, because you now got in here, the Good Samaritan and all kind of different parables that he talks about. I just can't remember them in my head right now, but I just remember a few. And once you remember them, once you mention it, bam, up they come. The rich man and Dives as an example. Just powerful stuff. So use it in your presentation. Tell stories. Give examples. Show pictures, whatever. You're always going to have to, you can't communicate without interpersonal and personal skills, okay? Attitude, skills, knowledge. Remember, attitude is not just about how you treat people. It's also how you treat yourself, okay? Very, very important. So you want to develop these skills. And again, YouTube have lots of videos. Last time I heard, there were billions and billions of videos in YouTube on every subject. It's just amazing. I mean, YouTube is amazing. It is unbelievable library. That's my library. I have it on all of my devices, all of them. YouTube. Wow. Thank you, YouTube. And all you guys down at Facebook or Google. I love you guys. Thank you so much for making all this available. And also available for people who didn't have the money. Great stuff, fantastic stuff. A presentation without an objective could be a disaster. Okay, a waste of people's time. So it's very, very important that you have your objective and always speak to the people in terms of benefits, advantages, and results, and you'll keep their attention. Very, very important. Needs of your audience is the most important. Without the audience, there would be no presentation. I keep telling people that it's not the presenter that's most important, it's the audience. Because it's amazing. They could choose any presenter that they want. And I would be obsolete in that company had it not been for the need of the audience. So it's important. If the needs of the audience change during my presentation, I change. If the audience asks a question, I focus on that question and stop doing what I was doing. The needs of the audience far more outweighs whatever I'm telling them, that I had prepared. So the needs of the audience is important. And finally, wow, be yourself. Be you. Develop your style. And I tell you, you will feel more fulfilled. You will feel more satisfied that I don't have to pretend to be Martin Luther King, a fake imitation. I don't have to be T.D. Jakes. I don't want to be. I don't want to be Anthony Robbins. I don't want to be in their position. I just want to be in my position. I'm comfortable with me. And the day I stop feeling comfortable, that's a sad day for me. So I just love being me because I know how to be me. So be yourself when you present. Be you. Develop yourself. Learn from everybody else, of course. Learn their techniques. Learn their skills. But be you. If you have any questions, please, you may ask me before I disappear into the twilight. It's now 11:30, right on the dot, as I said it would be. And No one has asked me any question tonight, so I will therefore then leave it at that and say thank you for dropping by tonight. This recording will be sent out to you and all the others who signed up but weren't able to make it within the next hour and a half. So thank you for turning up. I won't be doing another presentation on a Thursday until the new year, because the 24th I will be at our church service. So thank you very much for coming. Wish you a wonderful Christmas, a pleasant new year as it comes. And I hope that tonight was useful and beneficial. I will be hopefully repeating this in January. So I will send out information to that. Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Wish you and your family all the best. Take care of yourself, guys. Until we meet. Bye for now.